Hello everyone, and welcome to another quick cut rate commander Precon upgrade guide, the semi-regular series in which we give Precon decks a quick glow up without breaking the bank. My name's Grazzet, and today we'll be giving the Fallout Universes Beyond Scrappy Survivors Precon $35 worth of upgrades to bring it up to cut rate standards. As usual though, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you like this content. Consider supporting the channel directly either via my Buy Me a Coffee or my Game Nerds affiliate link in the description if you really like it, and be sure to stick around until the end of the video to see what Precon upgrades we'll be covering next. So, with that out of the way, let's start by taking a look at the commander and playstyle. This deck's face commander is Dogmeat Everloyal, a 3/3 dog that costs Naya that has the following abilities. Firstly, when he ETBs, we mill 5, then return an aura or equipment from our graveyard to our hand. And secondly, whenever a creature we control that's enchanted or equipped attacks, we create a junk token. Possessing a relatively low CMC and an average stat block for his cost, Dogmeat is clearly a commander that cares about auras and equipment, both via his first ability allowing us to easily get them back into our hand if they're destroyed or as he mills them as he comes down, as well as through his second ability's passive impulse draw via junk token creation that procs as our suited up creatures swing in. And, as one might expect, the base build does a serviceable job at enabling this aura and equipment heavy playstyle, including a solid arsenal of both new and old auras and equipment to buff up our creatures with, as well as a decent suite of payoffs to work alongside Dogmeat to generate us even more value from our auras and equipment. That said, this deck does have two major issues that this upgrade guide will be aiming to tackle. Those being that a good chunk of our creature base, most of which is legendary, doesn't contribute enough to our overall game plan, making them better build-arounds to get the maximum value out of their effects rather than being in our 99, and that the core build's aura and equipment selection, while it may not lack in quantity, its quality leaves a bit to be desired, including entries that are a bit too low power to be impactful, or that really don't contribute to the deck's more aggressive nature. So, in this upgrade, we'll be overhauling our creature base with some alternative legends that can better take advantage of both our auras and our equipment to more reliably generate us value, as well as pivoting the deck into a slightly more equipment-focused direction by adding in some powerful entries with more stopping power to close out games with, aiming to get the maximum value out of Dogmeat's junk token impulse draw as we suit him and his allies up and crash into our opponents with them. So let us make our way out of the vault and into the world of Fallout, where, whether you're the Vault Dweller, the Chosen One, the Lone Wanderer, or the Sole Survivor, Dogmeat will always be there for you as a loyal companion. And in the post-war irradiated wasteland, filled to the brim with super mutants, death claws, feral ghouls, raiders, and all manner of other things that want you dead, having this good boy at your side is worth its weight in bottle caps. So, now that we know a bit more about the commander and playstyle, let's jump straight into the upgrades. Kicking things off with the new wave of creature additions we'll be adding to the build to better fit with our mixed aura and equipment playstyle, we'll begin by cutting Kate, Cage Brawler, whose on attack loot and offensive indestructibility can be nice to set up Dogmeat's recursion and junk token creation, but the final build's relatively low mana curve makes it less likely we'll be able to grow her into a threat reliably, in favor of Shram's Senior Edificer, who provides reliable and repeatable card advantage as we cast our auras and equipment to keep our hands nice and topped off, Moira Brown Guide Author and Duchess Wayward Tavern Keep, both of whom would be more effective in a dedicated quest counter build to make use of their effects, will lose their spots to Danitha Capuchin Paragon and Danitha Nubanalia's Light, which better empower our aura and equipment game plan by either making those spells cheaper to cast in the former's case, or by allowing us to cast them from our bin in the latter's, and that's on top of also being excellent bodies to equip and enchant thanks to their multitude of built-in keywords, and, to complete the set, we'll be trading out Preston Garvey Minuteman, who deserves the Helminora themed build of his own to take maximum advantage of his untapping effect, in favor of Danitha Banalius Hope, whose ability to cheat out high cost auras and enchantments from our hand and from our bin onto herself when she ETBs, and her impressive selection of built-in keywords make her both a potent source of value and a terrifying beatstick. Then to wrap up our new legendary creature additions, we'll be sidelining Veronica Dissident Scribe, who lacks the multiple loot and rummage effects in this build needed to make her junk token creation as potent as it could be, for Kellen the Fey-Blooded, whose adventure side is superb at bringing up our most powerful auras and equipment directly into our hand from our deck, while his built-in double strike and ability to empower our entire board as we equip and enchant him makes him an excellent body to suit up, benching Commander Sophia de Guerre, whose legendary only removal is far too limited, so we can slot in Shishiro the Shattered Blade, whose creature token creation as we cast our auras and equipment gives us more expendable and pseudo-evasive bodies to enchant and equip to proc Dogmeat's junk token creation, or that we can simply use to screen attacks for us, and Ian the Reckless losing his spot, whose repeatable removal and burn is nice, but not worth him constantly hitting us in the face for, so we can slot in Ryev Master Smith, whose ability to grant double strike to all our enchanted and equipped creatures as they swing in is invaluable for both increasing their survivability in combat and drastically increasing their damage output. Now, as the only non-legendary dual payoff creature we'll be adding to the build, we'll be cutting Brotherhood Outcast, which is an okay source of one-time reanimation or protection, for Armored Sky Hunter, which instead provides us with a repeatable means to cheat auras and equipment from our deck into play at no mana cost as it swings in to speed up our game plan considerably, and whose built-in evasion makes it another good body to suit up to keep piling on the damage and proccing Dogmeat. And then as our last aura and equipment focused addition, we'll be removing the far too gimmicky card selection and treasure generating Vault 21 House Gambit in favor of the much more direct tutor Open the Armory, which again helps improve the build's consistency considerably by fetching up all our primary playmakers for only 2 mana. Now, with all our new dual aura and equipment matter additions covered, let's pivot into the pure equipment matters payoffs we'll be adding to the deck to better support the more equipment-focused direction we'll be taking it in, such as by removing Super Mutant Scavenger, whose recursion and trampling body are admittedly serviceable but are now overshadowed by the better options we've added in, for Akiri Fearless Voyager, which provides both repeatable card advantage as our equipped creatures swing in to keep replenishing our resources, and a repeatable way to protect our equipped creatures from destruction for only a single mana so they can keep swinging, and cutting the somewhat overcosted mana dork Bighorn Rancher for another legend in the form of Brunner Battlehammer, who may not ramp us directly, but whose ability to equip our creatures for free does save us a considerable amount of mana, while also providing a sizable power boost to all our equipped creatures so they can crack in even harder. Then pivoting away from creatures for a moment, we'll be swapping out the somewhat clunky to use board wipe single combat so we can slot in Forge Anew, which gives us another way to reanimate our equipment from the bin back into play after it's been destroyed or after we mill it with Dogmeat, while also letting us cheat on equip cost and equipping at instant speed on our turn to make effectively blocking our creatures almost impossible. And as our last pair of equipment payoffs to close out this category, which are in fact equipment themselves, we'll be replacing the somewhat odd inclusion Squirrel Nest for the much better fitting Bladehold War Whip, which comes equipped to a token body as soon as it comes down to proc Dogmeat's token creation with, grants double strike to the equipped creature to supercharge its damage output, and reduces all our other equip costs so we can suit up our creatures at a discount, and benching 3-Dog Galaxy News DJ, who deserves a dedicated aura theme build of his own to more reliably get use out of his aura multiplying effect, so we can add in Hammer of Nazan, which is fantastic here as a way to protect Dogmeat as soon as it comes down by equipping itself for free and granting him indestructible, while also making every subsequent equipment we cast attach itself for free so we can save even more mana. Now, staying on the equipment side of things, we'll be overhauling our equipable arsenal by cutting the serviceable but simple double strike granting Fire Shrieker and the outright Badland Temple of the False God in favor of Nettle Cyst and Cauldra Complete, both of which come into play equipped to bodies thanks to Living Weapon, and are fantastic in this build as either a scalable stat boost that increases alongside the build's various artifacts and enchantments, or as an impressive static stat boost that grants a variety of keywords to make the equipped creature much more resilient against removal and deadly in combat, and replacing another unnecessary land Ash Barrens with another self-wielding equipment in the form of Hexplate Wallbreaker, whose ability to grant an extra combat phase is invaluable to get extra damage into our opponents and extra junk token creation out of Dogmeat. Then to refine our ramp package with some more on-theme entries, we'll be scrapping both Perception Bobblehead and Agility Bobblehead, which would be much better in a build with all the bobbleheads to get the maximum use out of their effects, and reforging them into Sword of the Animist and Sword of Hearth and Home, both of which provide repeatable land-based ramp as our creatures swing in and stat bumps to better fit with our more aggressive playstyle, with the latter also providing respectable resilience and evasion via granting protection from green and white, and an on-damage flicker effect as well to let us get extra uses out of Dogmeat's or our other creatures' ETB effects, as well as melting down the unreliable ramp source Explorer Scope and disenchanting the fixing aura Abundant Growth to make room for Diamond Pickaxe and Beamtown Beatstick, which provides us with even more repeatable ramp as our creatures crack in, this time in the form of treasure generation, along with decent stat boosts and or keywords to, again, synergize better with the constant attacks we want to be making in order to create junk tokens. And then to wrap up our new equipment entries, we'll be removing Pip-Boy 3000 from our roster, whose variety of modes are flexible but lack the power we're looking for in this build, in favor of Tarian Soul Cleaver, which allows us to build up the equipped creature very quickly with +1/+1 counters as we crack our junk tokens to draw, while also granting the equipped creature Vigilance to better intercept incoming attacks for us with its increased bulk, and replacing Sticky Fingers, which has been edged out by other better ramp options we've added to the build, with Black Blade Reforged, which takes advantage of our 13 legendary creatures to equip for relatively cheap, and provides those legends with a massive stat boost that only gets better as we make our land drops so they can better tear apart our opponent's life totals. Now, with all our new equipment covered, we'll be adding one new aura to our arsenal by cutting Acquired Mutation, whose goat effect is soft removal at best and whose rad counter distribution doesn't really help or enable us, and adding in Darksteel Mutation, which is real removal that's also infuriating to deal with, especially when it targets our opponent's commanders by turning their creatures into a 0/1 indestructible paperweight. And finally, as our last upgrade to the build, we'll be letting go of Gunner Conscript, which is admittedly a good body to stack auras and equipment onto, but has a lot of competition for that already in the build, and running Cutsil Malmet Exemplar in its stead, whose ability to shut off our opponent's spell casting on our turn is invaluable for us to swing into them unimpeded, and whose repeatable draw effect for our suited up creatures provides us with yet another way for us to dig for more resources as we crack into our opponents for damage turn after turn. So, now that we've covered all 25 cards we've upgraded from the core build, let's take a look at the breakdown for this Precon upgrade. Looking at the stats that matter to our game plan, we have 20 pieces of equipment and 12 auras to enable our primary game plan of suiting up our creatures and swinging in, 25 cards that care about equipment, and 21 cards that care about auras to net us even more value out of them outside of their own effects, 6 cards that specifically care about artifacts to make better use of the more equipment-focused direction of our build and the artifact tokens that Dogmeat creates for us, and 10 sources of protection to help keep our suited up creatures alive against all the removal our opponents will be throwing their way in order to try and stay alive against their onslaught. For general deck stats, we have 11 ramp sources, 10 card draw sources, 6 targeted removal sources, and 2 board wipes, with our targeted removal being much lower than average since we're more concerned about keeping our empowered creatures alive rather than removing our opponent's threats, while all our other stats fall within more average range. Then looking at our mana curve, we have an average CMC of 2.86, leaving us with a rather aggressive curve that aims to get Dogmeat and our other creatures out quickly, suit them up, and continually swing into our opponents with them, generating us more and more impulse draw via Dogmeat's token creation to give us more and more resources to crash into our opponents even harder until they're simply beaten into submission. The final price of this build then comes out to be $80.28 after upgrades. This price does not include tax or shipping and assumes that the price you paid for the Precon was $45. The price of the cards was calculated by using the cheapest listed marketplace price on TCG Player at the time of this recording. Now, if we want to add even more upgrades by going over budget, we can amp up our creature lineup by swapping out Ryev Master Smith for Stoneforge Mystic to give us another way to tutor up our equipment and cheat it into play. On top of that, our enchantments can be improved further by cutting Animal Friend for Sigarda's Aid, whose ability to let us cast our primary playmakers at flash speed is invaluable and lets us cheat on equip cost as our equipment ETBs on top of that, and we can refine our equipment lineup even further by scrapping Bladehold Warwhip, Behemoth Sledge, and a Junk Jet to make room for Sword of Forge and Frontier, Bitterhorn Nissa's Animus, and a Sword of Feast and Famine to give us even more ramp, more protection, and more powerful effects, all for the totally reasonable price of the cost of this entire deck. Thanks everyone for sticking around until the end of the video. So, with the Scrappy Survivors Precon upgrade complete, next up on the chopping block is the Hail Kaisar Precon and its face commander, Kaisar Legion's Emperor. So look forward to that build coming soon. While you wait though, we'll also have a poll running in the community tab to see which of the alternate commanders from the Fallout Precons will get to have a build of their own. Those being the aura-focused Preston Garvey Minuteman, the dice-rolling Mr. House President and CEO, the mutant milling the Master Transcendent, and the energy-hungry robot Liberty Prime Recharged. So be sure to cast your vote, link in the description, before the deadline on March 8th, and let me know in the comments which commander you voted for, and which commanders from this set you'd like to see in future polls. And again, before we close out, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Consider donating to buy me a coffee or use my Game Nerds affiliate link if you want to support the channel directly. And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, either click on the videos floating around my head for the latest builds, or click on the card above for a playlist of all the deck techs I've made so far. And with that, have a good one folks, and stay safe.